Good evening. My name is Ruban Roberts, and I'm here to welcome you to our Wellness Wednesdays talk. Tonight, we have a very special guest, Wydia Houston, who's going to be here with us. The COVID-19 Mental Health Wellness Program is the founder of the Wellness Wednesdays talks. And so, what we'd like for you to do is tune in every Wednesday at 7 p.m. on your Facebook channel to catch some new and exciting guests that will definitely talk about issues that are related to mental health uh, and wellness and COVID, so that we can make sure that you're up to speed on all the latest information that you possibly have. We want to be your trusted source of information regarding all things related to COVID and mental health and wellness. Again, we always invite you to our website for you to go out and make sure that you can take the survey. The survey is very important. You can do that by going to www.mymentalhealthmiami.com. Once you click on once you access the website, what you can do is you'll see up in the right hand corner, you will see a place where it says survey. Click on that survey, and then you can take the survey from there. The survey is done, and the website can be viewed in three languages: in English, Spanish, and Creole. What's the significance of the survey? The survey is made so that you can know where you stand in the areas of stress, depression, anxiety, and levels of support. Once you get your score, you'll receive a scorecard once you finish the test. Once you receive your scorecard, now you can take action if there's something that you need to do. And one of the things that you can do is contact our care coordination team. The number's on the crawl below at 786-433-8487. Our care coordination team is powered by New Horizons Mental Health Center, and they will be able to help you with whatever referrals that you may need for services. They don't have to always be about mental health services. They can be service related to, just environmental issues. You may need housing. You may need something, food. You may need employment. So those opportunities will be available for you by contacting our care coordinating team. Make sure you go to the website, do the survey at mymentalhealthmiami.com. And after you get your scorecard, make sure you contact our care coordination team at 786-433-8487. Know your score. So with that being said, we're going to get into tonight's program. Good evening, Wadia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am well. I'm so excited to have you on. Why don't you give the listeners a little bit about your background, your history? Give them your resume.
Sure. So I am a licensed clinical social worker. I am born and raised in Philadelphia, and I practice across the state of Pennsylvania. Currently, am the owner and therapist of Forward Motion Wellness and Consultation Services. And we do individual therapy, consultation, wellness workshops for small businesses and organizations, diversity, equity, and inclusion training, pretty much a lot of different things under the sun. But I've been doing it for a while now, been in the field 11, maybe 12 years now. I've worked in every different piece of mental health or social work that you can imagine. And I'm happy to be here with you guys today.
Now, are your services provided remotely? Can someone see you, access you through the internet or by phone?
Sure, yes. So my practice is fully virtual. So all sessions are telehealth. My website, www.forwardmotion.live. There are ways to access me there, schedule appointments, or even schedule a consultation so that we can discuss what needs might be, even if it's a referral. But that's how people can access me.
Excellent. So now I want to ask you a question. You said you've been practicing for a while. How have things been for the last 2 years, 2.5 years? What have you been experiencing from your clientele in terms of stress levels, depression, anxiety? Fill us in on what's going on. What are you seeing?
Sure. Seeing basically everything that you just mentioned. Stress levels, depression, and anxiety are at an all-time high the past 2 years due to just a full flip-flop in everybody's life. Jobs that we had where we may have been going in every day, people were laid off, people were working remote, children were sent home to do their work from school, and everybody was expected to manage. I've talked to clients who were in abusive home environments, whether it was domestically, whether child abuse rates had rise because everyone had to be in these homes and no one had outlets anymore. Um, Access to food, access to just kind of basic needs also put stressors on folks. And now we're in a situation where there's lack of access to baby formula. So just every time you turn around, it has and we're in inflation and gas prices are are up and food prices are up. And so it seems and what it feels like for clients is that every time you turn around, there's a new stressor, there's a new wave of anxiety, something new that we have to worry about and work our way through and figure out how we're going to make it through sometimes the day or until the next week.
Yes. Wow. I just got depressed listening to what you just said. So I'm wondering, I mean, because it is a reality. Everything that you said is a reality. It's something that we're actually experiencing. So sometimes we are going through it, but we're not thinking about it. We're not processing it, right? But internally, it's taking a toll. So how do you address that with someone who just came in and they're they're not 100%. They're feeling off kilter. Um, how do you help bring them to a place to more balance?
Well, there are a couple of ways. One thing that I say about starting therapy is that you have to be really ready. You have to be really ready to be honest with yourself. You have to be really ready to dig into what is going on. I think a lot of times in our community, we have the notion that things are just hard, we have to deal with it. I'm probably doing no better, no worse than the next person. Things aren't supposed to just be good, so maybe I shouldn't complain, or it's looked at as complaining. Maybe I shouldn't have to talk to somebody about this. But really, what it's doing internally is it's having such an effect on our mind as well as our bodies. So once you start to notice, what I tell a person is once you start to notice those changes, whether it's your mental functioning or your physical functioning, your emotional functioning, it's time to talk to somebody. So when a
Mm.
person comes in, we really dig into what exactly is going on. What are you feeling? I've had people come to me saying, they are noticing they're having panic attacks. They're starting to panic about things that used to just be, that old saying, like, if it ain't one thing, it's another. And we used to just ride on that. And then it just kept being another thing and another thing. And now we're at panic mode because there's so many things. And how do we map this out? How do we take it one step at a time? How do we work through one issue so that we can work through another one without it breaking us down physically or emotionally? I've had people notice those physical symptoms of getting increased migraines or experiencing depressive symptoms, staying in bed all day, not wanting to even get out of bed and address what's going on because it all feels like too much. So I would tell a person to be honest with yourself. Is that normal for you? Do you feel like that's normal or healthy? What can we do about it? And are you willing to really work towards doing something about it? Um, so that's kind of where we would start. And we would start with making some goals. What's the goal here? Do we want to feel better? Do we want to have less stress? Do we want to be a better parent or a better spouse to those around us? Do we want to be more functional on our jobs? What is the goal here? What do we want to do? And we start to make some goals and we start from there.
Outstanding. I love everything that you share because you're really capturing exactly what a lot of the folks are dealing with. Unfortunately, in a lot of our communities, folks don't have access for affordability to receive this type of assistance in terms of mental health and wellness. So, um, at some point, or right now, you can talk about what are some of the things you can do for those who can't afford to receive services? What are some of the things that they can do in terms of self-care?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you asked. So there's a two things, two-part answer to that. Firstly, if there are folks out there that can't afford treatment, there's if you are employed and your job offers you an insurance, they typically do have some mental health benefits. I would look into that. Typically, people have an EAP person, an employee assistance provider. I would find out who that person is. They can definitely point you into directions of who your job might cover for you. And then there are low cost options. So if you are uninsured, there are low cost options, lots of different ones online. Um, a few of them would be BetterHelp.com, the Open Path Collective, and these are national. These are providers that you can search by zip code. I know in our community, the Loveland Foundation through the Black Mental Health Collective, the Loveland Foundation offers vouchers to Black women who don't have the funds for therapy, and most Black female therapists do accept those vouchers. Um, and then, so those are ways to get a private therapist. And then, as far as self care, if maybe you're not ready and you want to try some things on your own first, I always point to mindfulness. There are different ways that we can just kind of be mindful if we're in the middle of a depressive episode or an episode where we're feeling like the anxiety is rising up. You just stop and take a minute. Um, you really get into your five senses, being mindful of what you see, what you hear, what's around you. Is the problem that you're thinking about something up next week, or is it something that's happening right now? If it's something that's happening next week, maybe now is not the time to worry about it. Take a deep breath, realize what's in your surroundings, and be able to kind of get on with your day based on things that can calm you down, and worry about next week's problem next week. The more you can do that, when we get to next week's problem, you'll be a little bit better equipped to deal with it. You'll be calmer. You'll be able to take a beat and take a deep breath and realize what's actually at stake, and be able to kind of move forward with the issue from there. Self care can take a role in lots of different ways. Lots of people look to simple things: taking a walk, listening to music, journaling, taking a break from what's stressing you, watching a funny movie, talking to your support system. Who is around you that supports you? Is it family? Is it friends? Who actually gets what you're going through? Can you talk to them? Can you laugh with them for a second and just take a beat to take time away from what's actually bothering you? So self-care can be something as simple as that, just so that you can calm down and reflect on what's actually going on.
Yeah. And please add, turn off the news.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes, and
that could be
watching too much
best.
news can
Yes,
definitely be a stressor. I definitely would
it is.
limit your news cycle, maybe limit your social media access.
Right.
Yeah, I would recommend that as well.
Those are excellent, excellent tips, and thank you for offering those. I think that our listening audience, if you missed it, please play it back. We're sitting here, we're interviewing Wydia Houston. She's a mental health therapist, and she's based out of Philadelphia, but she's giving us some gems today to for those of you who may be looking for some help, who may feel that uh, you may not be able to afford it. She just gave us some gems, and then she also, for those of you who think you may not be able to afford it, you may have access to it already and not be aware. So she shared with us about programs like EAP, or just checking with your medical insurance from your employer to see if they have coverage for mental health services. So that's very important, and I thank you for sharing that information. One of the things I want to say to you is that I know, based on my uh, practice when I was actually practicing therapy, that during times of pandemic, during times of any type of natural disasters, we're prone to having hurricanes down here in Miami, South Florida. Um, as you mentioned, you know, uh, domestic violence rises. In addition to domestic violence, also substance abuse and substance use rises as well, while people are recovering and trying to put things back together. And I just wanted you to talk about those two areas in specifically regarding how folks are first. Let's start with the substance use. How folks are self-medicating. So some you gave us just now some very healthy, pro-social ways of really addressing the problem. But sometimes we've been exposed to ways, and we use these ways that we've been exposed to to try to handle whatever the stressors are by using substances that alter our moods. And so talk to us about that. Talk to us about the what happens when we use these substances to try to address the issue, and talk to us about what can be the long-term impact on these things.
Sure.
Just give us a lesson on that.
Yeah, sure. I think when we turn to substances to alter our moods or to kind of fade out what's going on, it's because we obviously don't want to deal with it at that time. What it does ultimately is delay your depression. It can delay basically how you're feeling about it, right? We fade that out because we don't want to deal with it. So all you're doing is once you kind of come out of that fog, you come out of that high or whatever it is that you're doing, those feelings are still going to be there. That issue
Waiting.
is still gonna, yeah, it's still gonna be there waiting. So all we
Waiting.
do is delay. All it's doing is delaying it. It's not fixing the issue. It's not addressing the issue. And so, it just does internal harm to our body, to our minds, to our moods. We have all heard stories of someone probably doing something they wouldn't have done if they were not under the influence of a substance. And now you have done something because you're under the influence of a substance, and the problem that you are wanting to avoid is still there. So now all we do is compound issues when all we have to do, well, not all we have to do, I know it's definitely easier said than done,
Right.
but
Right.
trying to at least avoid substances and deal, you have to feel your feelings. You can't dull them. You can dull them, but again, it always comes back. You will Some people will continue to utilize a substance to avoid that coming back. So once you come down, people want to come back up. And you're coming down and you don't want to feel that depression again, let me take it back up. And so, again, all it does is delay it. It causes the need for increased use of a substance because people are still trying to dull the feelings. But the way around it is to feel your feelings. It's going to hurt. You may cry, you may need a minute, you may need therapy, you may need medication, and all those things are okay. But it's important to feel what you're feeling instead of using a substance to just dull the pain because it just prolongs what you're trying to get around.
So I'm glad you said that because it's true. You're right. You just have to face it. And sometimes the hardest things for us to do is just look in the mirror and you know, see ourselves.
Yeah.
I think that we want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be respected. It's clear in our community, especially with our history and how we've been marginalized and how we've been always treated in a way that like second class citizens.
Yep.
And so you like you said, these issues become compounded.
Hmm.
And I think for men and women, one of the things is that okay, we need an escape, and it's easier to find that escape through a substance, whether it be drugs or alcohol,
Hmm.
whatever it is that can numb the pain, like you said. And then hey, at least for however long, I don't have to deal with it. I don't even have to think about it because I have a I don't care attitude,
Yeah.
right? The other thing I notice is that there are a lot of men in particular who don't want to be or don't want to feel emotions,
Yeah.
who are afraid of emotions. How do you help those people who are afraid of experiencing emotions to get to a place to where they're in a place of acceptance?
That's a really good question. I definitely run across that a lot, like you said, especially with men, with Black men. What I do is I try to break them all the way down to the beginning. So it's
Oh man,
yeah,
that sounds like, ooh, that's a journey right
it's
there.
a
That
journey.
you're talking about 7, 8, 10 sessions even before you can even get into the real work.
Yeah, I told you, I said at the beginning, you have to be ready. You have to be ready
Yeah,
for
that's right.
this.
That's right. You
You have
did
to
say
be
that.
honest with yourself. And to me, I like to work psychodynamically, meaning I like to talk about where did we start to understand how we got.
Origin. Yeah.
Yeah, and so with a lot of black men, it's the bravado of what is masculine, what is perceived as masculine, the messages that they got growing up, whether that's family, friends, social, cultural influences, all of those things make who we are as people. And then in our community, there's a subset of what that means. And then how am I as a man? A father, a friend, a brother, a spouse, a partner. Like, what does that all mean for me based on this idea of who I feel that I am? And where does that come from? So we have to break that all the way down and start at the beginning. You know, we talk about what your parents were like, what messaging you got at home about what it meant to be a man. Do you agree with that? Does that still hold true for you today? And in today's times or today's issues, what does it mean for you? And then we can start to realize, you know, I've had clients start to think really crucially about that and critically about that to say, you know what? Yeah, I had this uncle in my life and he told me you're supposed to do X, Y, and Z, but and I've been doing that. And now I see that that really doesn't make sense or it doesn't work or it's just not who I am or who I want to be. And maybe that's kind of the root of my issue. It's what I've been taught to do, what I know to do, what influenced me. And this is who I am. And so I think that being ready and being honest about that helps understand how we operate today as adults. So that's kind of my method for addressing that.
And I think that's an excellent method. Now, you mentioned psychodynamic. You know, also have the psychoanalytical models.
Mhm.
You have the um, CBT. Uh, uh, um, talk to us about, you have the trauma informed. Talk to us about the various forms of therapy approaches and how they are utilizing your practice, if you will.
Sure. Well, again, so I do everything that I do from a trauma informed lens. Um, I I don't assume that everybody that comes to me comes from a place of trauma, but I think that trauma can manifest itself in different ways, even
That's
if
right.
it's something as simple as, you know, maybe you almost got hit by a car and that was just a traumatic experience for you. Everything that I do comes from the lens of something maybe bad has happened to you and it's had a hold on your life. And maybe that hold is how you act behaviorally, how you treat other people, what you think about yourself, and how you move in the world. And so, from
So,
that
so
lens,
let me just interject here. So, in essence, because I want our listening audience to really get it. So, wherever the trauma happens is where you can become stunted, right?
right, exactly.
So, yeah, talk about that because a lot of folks don't realize, you know, you could experience something at the age of 10
Hmm.
and your emotional levels of intelligence or whatever may be stuck
Hmm.
at that age because that's where you experience the trauma.
Hmm. Trauma definitely can keep you stunted. So again, it doesn't have to be something as huge as an abuse. It can again just be a traumatic event that happened in your life that keeps you stunted. So I use the example of being hit by a car. There are people today as adults who don't drive because they are
Right.
scared to get in, you know, to be responsible behind a wheel or something like that. So trauma can keep you stunted. So I view everything from a trauma informed lens that, okay, something has us stunted, something has a hold on us that we need to work through. And again, that's why I say I like to work psychodynamically because if we take it back, we want to unpeel and unpack the layers of what has us stunted. Then I also use cognitive
So let's
behavior.
stop again.
Yep.
explain what psychodynamic is, because they don't listening audience may not be aware.
Yeah. So basically, it just means reviewing your life from start to finish. If you get really deep into it, some therapists like to use like family trees, and they'll have you really like um, dig deep into your family so that you can start to understand patterns that may have been there, whether it's patterns of abuse, patterns of substance abuse, patterns of anything across the board. Everybody in my family had 10 children. Everybody on this side of family had a substance abuse issue. Okay, this is the point in my family where um, certain people start to pass away from certain illnesses or something. So it really helps us dig deep into the family tree to understand patterns. And so that's what psychodynamic means. It just means more of a historical picture of you and your life and where you come from.
Okay.
Mhm.
And what about psychoanalytical?
So psychoanalytical model is more of addressing like the here and now. So we don't take it all the way back to childhood. We'll just talk about, let's analyze what what is going on right now. What brought you in? Was it that, you had this panic attack, you're really suffering from depression, and you want to just address that? You understand that the depression is maybe from COVID, it's COVID related. Maybe you've lost somebody due to COVID and that has had you depressed. Let's deal with the depression. And so then we kind of implement different ways like a cognitive behavioral therapy to address the depression and not necessarily like what happened in childhood.
So the cognitive behavioral therapy is what explain cognitive behavioral therapy.
So then that type of therapy is all based on behaviors and your actions and how, if you think of a triangle, so here's your behaviors, here are your actions, and here are your thoughts. So basically they are all connected. What you think about yourself will influence your behaviors, will influence your actions. What you think about anything basically will influence those things. So the key to it is to then alter your thought patterns, to challenge those thought patterns. And if we can change the thinking, then we can change the behavior. And that's pretty much what it is.
So it's all interconnected and interrelated, right?
Yes, yes, it is.
So that's with CBT, it helps you to understand that there's that cycle going on, and at some point you're going to, insert something new in that cycle to get a different result,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And so great. I really appreciate that, because as you describe psychoanalytic, psychodynamic, and cognitive behavioral, I think a lot of our listeners, I shouldn't say a lot, but some of our listeners may not even be aware of the different approaches.
Mhm.
And what I found is that I've had clients that came in that were well versed on the different approaches, right? So
Yep,
they'll say, well, listen, I don't need to go to the psychodynamic thing. I
yep,
really want, I need you to do CBT with me.
yep,
This is what I need. And so those folks who are like, they are really into self-care, do a lot. And I think that that's something that's important for you all as well. So hopefully you've learned some information about just a couple of forms of therapy. There's so many more to uncover and discuss, but we just gave you some of the primary, and these are practices that by Sigmund Freud, and also Carl Jung, some greats who've been in the field that you can learn from. But let me say again, this is Ruban Roberts with RER Consulting and the COVID Mental Health and Wellness Program. The COVID Mental Health and Wellness Program features our Wellness Wednesdays talks. We have with us therapist Wydia Houston, who's been dropping gems. I hope that you guys listen. You need to hear what she had to offer. It's a very, this is free, and I mean, a very educational information. So I hope that if you came on a little bit late, please roll the tape back so that you can hear what she had to offer. Trust me, you will definitely be informed. It'll definitely give you some guidance. Again, I want to encourage everyone that's on the Zoom to go to mymentalhealthmiami.com. Make sure you fill out the survey. The survey will be in the upper right hand corner. Click on that survey. When you click on that survey, you'll take the click on that button. You'll take the survey, and then our survey is different than most surveys. What you will do is you'll receive a scorecard. What is the significance of that scorecard? That scorecard is important because it gives you a score on where you fall from 0 to 10 in the areas of stress, depression, anxiety, and support. These are empirically validated instruments that are used for us to collect the data on that. This is not a clinical diagnosis, but it is something that will give you some information about where you are in those areas, and then you can follow up with either your own practitioner or own therapist, or you can contact our care coordination team at 786-433-8487. It is powered by New Horizons, which is a mental health clinic here in Miami-Dade County, and they will refer you to services, not only for mental health services, but other environmental services such as housing, healthcare, um, food, employment. So we are hoping that you'll be able to take advantage of that by utilizing this information. We want you to know where you are. We function under such high degree of stress that a lot of times we normalize it and we are not even aware that we're dealing with the higher degree of stress or anxiety or depression. We either normalize it or we mask it through using substances. And we talked about that a little bit earlier today. So, Wydia, I'd like for you to talk about that whole defense mechanism, I guess, of how we normalize, some of the symptoms of stress, anxiety, and depression that we're dealing with. Speak to us about that and how that manifests in terms of us masking those symptoms.
Sure. Um, Again, you know me, I like to take it back. So I think that I
Take
think
us back, take us all the way back.
I take it all the way back, and I just feel that just as a people, Black folks we've always had to mask stress and
Wow.
anxiety and depression. And if you think about the historical context of um, an enslaved person, they were stressed, they were depressed.
Right,
He had
right.
levels, but it
They
always
weren't happy go lucky singing and
they
whistling
were
Dixie or whatever, right?
right, exactly. They were depressed, but it was the
Right,
masking that they had to do, and
right.
that had been passed down. We've always had the world on our backs, and we've had to keep working, put a smile on, not let anybody into your business, not complain, not feel our feelings. Like we were just not allowed to have feelings. And so, some of that from our previous conversation about Black men and not, wanting to open up or appear weak or fragile, all of that has a historical context to it. And so we today, generations later, still operate from that vantage point of masking it, masking our stress and masking our feelings.
So
Um,
it's a survival technique, right?
yeah. It's a defense mechanism, and it's just so culturally ingrained in us. And I think, as you mentioned before, like we're always dying to be seen and be heard because we've had to mask this and suppress it for generations. And now we're finally coming, I think, into a space and a time where Black folks are saying, not only do I want to be seen and heard, like I have feelings, those feelings are valid. I want to talk about them. I want to understand them. I want to be better. We talk about breaking generational curses and generational trauma. So, all those things that have been passed down to us, we're now getting into a space where we're trying to break that.
Wow.
And I'm sorry, did I answer your question?
You did, but I don't know if you really, I mean, you just really, you brought so much light on a lot of issues that we deal with.
Mhm.
So, so our reaction to stress and trauma has been ingrained in us.
Mhm. To keep it in house,
Yeah.
to keep
Right,
it inside, to keep it in house. It's never been go tell the world what's wrong. Go cry about it. Go, like we've never had the luxury to be able to.
and and keeping it in house does what for us? How is that working for us?
Not well. What it typically does, again, it just creates more generational trauma. If we grew up in a house with a mother who was stressed all the time, whether it was to pay the bills, whether it was a abusive situation with the father or an absentee father, or mom trying to do it all and all that kind of stuff, she's stressed, but she doesn't have any positive outlets. She doesn't have the tools she needs to address that stress, that depression, um, to manage her stress. So she's just trying to manage the day and put food on the table. And so, what that then, they're not that we are not loving, because of course we do love our children, we take care of them, but in a way that is sometimes pulled from some women like that, that I have to find ways to show this love. Sometimes showing love shows up in different ways. Maybe it's not the hugs and kisses and being tucked in good night because mom is stressed and tired. Maybe it's just, I fed you, I clothed you, that's how I showed you I loved you. Let's keep it real. A lot of us, a lot of people come from that.
Yeah,
I fed you and that's how I love you. And now we come as a more informed generation, or more informed space, to mothers from that, and say, well, you never told me that you love me. You never
right.
really hugged me. I never hugged you. I didn't have time to hug you. I was working three jobs. I didn't have time to tuck you in at night. And sometimes we manifest or ingrain that, like, love has to show up in different ways, but the people that we want to love on experience it in different ways. And so if we're all keeping that in house, and we're not on the same page about how we demonstrate love, how we experience love, sometimes it just gets lost in the sauce. And it again creates a generation of people who maybe either don't know how to accept love, don't know how to give it, don't know how to talk about feelings. And then it continues, the cycle continues. These are people who then get in relationship with other people and then have children, and then it just continues. So it does us no
Re-traumatization.
re-traumatizes us. It
Right.
does us no good. It's not to our benefit to keep all that in house. It's time to start talking about it. It's time to start seeking the help that we need.
And the thing about it is that um, when you've been traumatized, they say hurt people.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, is almost likely, very likely, that someone that's close to you who trusts you, you will in turn traumatize as well
Yep.
because you haven't dealt with your issues.
Yep.
So, I'm loving what you're saying and what it's really doing. And this is one of our core competencies and issues that a core competency for the COVID mental health and program. But RER in general is to be cultural and linguistically competent.
Mhm.
What you just gave
Mhm.
was as you began to talk about some of the issues that happen in a specific demographic, and you used Black community. You talked about it from a historical context and how the trauma has come down and how some of us have used defense mechanisms to cover things up. So it's vitally important for a person who's seeking therapy to make sure that they link and connect with someone that understands their culture, right?
Yes.
And understand how it has an impact on their family. So you can be a great therapist,
Mhm.
but if you're not culturally competent,
Yep.
there's some things that you just may miss that you don't see. Please
Mhm.
speak to the importance of just having that cultural competency in terms of working with folks who are coming to seek your services.
Yes, I think it's very important. It's something that I advise people to do, is to really consider the identities of their therapists and what feels important to you. If the issues that you are coming to therapy with, you feel are family related, culturally related, there's racial trauma that people experience, seeking the right type of therapist that understands you from a culturally competent perspective is definitely going to be more to your benefit. um, that is said for could be said for the Black community. It could be said for
So all communities.
yeah, any community. I've
Right.
had Asian clients, who are raised in a different way. The expectations on them growing up were very different than what they experience, or especially if the parents may be immigrants. And that could be any community. Immigrant, if the parents are immigrants, or if you are an immigrant from any country, and your children are born here, there's a difference. Um,
Yeah,
so
acculturation issues.
acculturation
And
and
yeah,
something that causes such family strife and family
right.
discord that needs to be addressed. So it could be for the LGBT community. You having someone who
Yes.
understands you from a culturally competent perspective is definitely going to be to your benefit. Because again, like you said, you don't want your therapist to miss something. You don't want them to normalize what they feel is um, American, or or across the board what it should be normal, where in certain cultures that's not really the norm. That's not how we view things. That's not how it's typically done. And so to get with a therapist that won't make you feel like those things are necessarily wrong, but just that they should be addressed, they should be internalized. You should talk to your family about that. You want a therapist who gets it from that perspective, who gets, again, like I said, the generational trauma, the generational poor levels of stress management, the norm to keep mental problems or mental stressors in house. You
You
want
need
some,
a therapist that can see through the mask.
yes, pretty
And
much.
if they can't see through the mask, they're gonna miss it
They're going to
because they're
miss
gonna, yeah, they're gonna go through some textbook solution about how to handle this particular problem, but they don't really realize what the real problem is. So that cultural sensitivity piece is so very key,
it. Yeah.
and it applies across the board, whether you're Hispanic, whether you're Black, whether you're Asian, wherever you're from. You really need to have a culturally competent therapist that understands your culture,
Yeah.
and the therapist shouldn't be learning your culture by by treating you,
Right.
because that just, I mean, if that's the case, they should be paying you for the session and not them you paying them. So
Exactly.
one of the things I want to encourage you guys is to make sure that you understand the importance of having that culturally competent therapist. It's very, very important. You can have a therapist that is highly skilled in their practice, but just not informed in terms of culture, and they can make some, they can miss the mark,
Yeah.
and we want to try to avoid them missing the mark as much as possible. Again, more gems. Thank you so much, Wadia, for sharing all of this information with us. I think that this information was great. Listen, for those of you who have questions for Wadia, this is a pre-recorded session. We encourage you to, if as you see this, if you have any questions, to put it in the chat. And if we get enough questions, we might have to invite Wadia back on so she can answer those questions for you. Okay. But today she's giving you gems. I mean, gem after gem. If there are any questions that you had about receiving mental health services, what type of interventions that are used, or what type of models that are used, I mean, all of the above was answered today in this Wellness Wednesday talk, and I'm very appreciative of you, Wadia, for sharing so much with us from a therapeutic perspective and as a Black woman. I really appreciate that. So I want to give you an opportunity again to give your information, about your practice and how you can be reached virtually to for those who may be interested who in working with you.
Sure. So I am owner and therapist of Forward Motion Wellness and Consultation Services. It is a fully virtual therapy practice right now for therapy serving the state of Pennsylvania. But for anyone else outside of Pennsylvania, I am doing consultation. I do wellness workshops, diversity, equity, and inclusion trainings for organizations and small businesses. I speak on platforms like this nationally about a variety of topics. So if any of that interests you, I can be reached at Wydia, WYDIA, at forwardmotion.live. Um, and I am open to talking to anyone about anything.
Thank you again for joining us today. I really appreciate the information that you shared with us. Listen, we want to make sure that you uh, watch this session in its entirety. So if you came in a little bit late, please go back to the beginning so that you can hear it all the way from the beginning. Make sure you go and take the survey. If you have not taken the survey yet, you can get access to survey by going to www.mymentalhealthmiami.com. Get your score, get your scorecard. And then if you need some additional help, contact our care coordination team at 786-433-8487. This broadcast is being brought to you by All Like Minds Media, James Mungeon. Thank you, James, for providing us with this platform. And I wish you all a wonderful evening. Good night. Good evening.